Welcome into Rounding the Bases Live, presented by Enterprise Bank and Trust. Another episode. I think this is episode 47 or 48. Going to hit the 50 mark next week. So I had it all figured out, but then we took Monday off for Memorial Day. Kind of exciting. This week is almost over. So I love these holiday weeks. 2 more days to go. Everybody's, I think, still grinding away. And I've got a panel today that I've been excited about for a long time, in part because I think it's a discussion that a lot of people will enjoy, myself included. I'm really interested. And it's also the first big panel that I've had on this show. I've had some where I've had 2 guests, but today we're going to double it up and we're going to have 4. Maybe we'll do this again too. So I want to encourage everyone, if you're watching live on Facebook, throw some comments in there. We might answer some of those questions, questions, whatever it might be. Also, quick thanks and some business here. I want to thank my partners at Enterprise Bank and Trust. Hashtag no stopping you. Could not do this without their support. And once again, I see some Casey Cattle Company beef downstairs in the kitchen ready to go for tonight. I don't know what we have tonight, but I can tell you that Wagyu beef from up in Weston, Missouri, veteran-owned and operated company, will change your life. You've never had beef like it. It kind of sounds like a sales pitch, right? But we're living it. We love it. So they will deliver to your house. They'll deliver to all 50 states. And as I mentioned, veteran-owned and operated, led by former U.S. Army Ranger Patrick Montgomery. He is a great guy. They've got a nice social media presence, too. So check them out. Before I bring in my guests, I wanted to share, and we all live in that world of sharing Zoom screens and all that now. I wanted to share this, and it's a label. I don't know if it's right or it's fair, but we hear so much about generations now. I think I promoted the show earlier today on LinkedIn and Facebook with a "Okay Boomer" comment. I'm not a boomer, by the way. So I know that with all this white hair, it looks like I might have been born in this 46 to 63. That is not the case. I wasn't born in 64 or 65 or the 60s at all, for that matter. But I'm definitely a Gen Xer. I think we'll figure this out in a minute, that we've got millennials, or I don't know what Gen Y versus millennials means, and we might even have some Gen Z on the show. The reason why I wanted to do this, and take a look, what do you remember? I think that might be the best way if we're going with labels. Do you remember being around for Kennedy's assassination? I don't. I know that my parents talk about that quite a bit, but I certainly remember the fall of the Berlin Wall. Definitely remember MTV, AIDS. I remember where I was when Magic Johnson had his press conference announcing that he had HIV, and it was like stunning. We'd never heard of someone that famous like that. So the world changes, but you remember these events, certainly Columbine. I'm on all of these, I remember, but I don't remember Woodstock, so I'm not a boomer. That is my long way of getting to not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 guests today, who all, I promise myself, will make me feel really, really old. But that's okay, because I live in a world of interviewing athletes where the athletes get younger every year and I keep getting older. I'll make one more comment and then I'll introduce my panel. I remember, I think it was last year or the year before, it was my birthday, and one of the players in the Royals dugout, they knew it. My birthday's Cinco de Mayo, so people remember that a lot. And they yell over, "Hey, happy birthday. How old are you?" And I said how old I was, and I thought that the 2 Royals' best players at that point were Adalberto Mondesi and Brad Keller. And their combined age, they have the same exact birthday. July 27th, I believe it is, 96. Their combined birthday, before I have my birthday in May, they're always combined less than I am individually. And I was like, they were like 23, and I was, 46 or whatever it was. Anyway, I want to introduce my panel, and I'll just we'll go top and circle around. Let's go clockwise. Emerson Hodes, Kaylee Chapello, Mario Martinez, who I think actually I've known longer than the rest of you guys. We would go back a couple of years. And Cody Isabel, right? Been a couple years. So we've got 4 guests that I wanted to have a panel discussion about generations. Because look, unless you have an office where it's all Gen Z or all Gen X, you got to figure out how to have the 25-year-old work, get along, and be productive with the 50-year-old or whatever it is. Let's start with this question around the panel. Emerson, we'll start with you. Just tell us who you work for, each of you, and which one of those categories that you fit into in terms of generation.
Yeah. Well, my name's Emerson Hodis. I work for a company called Chief of Staff KC in Brookside. We specialize in hiring candidates for our clients in accounting, finance, human resources, operations, and administrative positions. I also started a networking group called the Loop KC that everyone here is involved in. And that's been growing really well. And then I actually I think I fall into the younger end of the millennial category, born in 94.
All right, young millennial. Kaylee?
Hi, guys. I'm Kaylee Chaplow. I work at Risk Genius. It's a local tech startup here in KC. So we have policy checking software that we sell to large brokers and insurance companies. And I am Gen Z. So I was 96.
Okay, just like the guys I was talking about on the Royals. Mario?
My name is Marielle Martinez. I work for United Healthcare, and I'm part of the Medicare and retirement business. So talking about generational differences, I work with the agents in this market who sell our Medicare products, and I am a millennial through and through.
All right, Cody?
Hey, yeah, I'm Cody Isbell. I run the Sandler training franchise here in Kansas City. We train human beings to be better at being human beings with each other, and that lends itself extraordinarily well to our topic today: leadership, sales, management, and those are our primary focuses.
And millennial?
Oh, yeah, I'm Gen Z. So I'm
Gen Z.
By the number, technically, I'm Gen Z, but I was November of 95, and all of the things I'm supposed to remember from for a millennial, I have no clue about. So.
All right. And my name, by the way, is Joel Goldberg. I am through and through a Gen Xer, 1972. And so now everybody knows exactly my birth date and all that type of stuff. But I think at least for me, and look, we're all learning every single day, but it drives me nuts when I hear on either end, those darn millennials or those darn Gen Z or okay boomer, and which, by the way, a lot of times is deserved too, like get off my lawn. But if you can't work together, so I'm think about this in my world. I'm dealing with boomers. I mean, there are a lot of people that have been around the world of baseball that are in their 60s or even 70s, whether they be a coach or a scout or whatever. I'm dealing with managers and coaches that are usually in their 50s or 60s, but these days they could be 40s or even now we're getting to the point where some of them are younger. We're dealing with, say, an Alex Gordon. And I actually want to come up with a speech on this for the future, but an Alex Gordon, who I think is 36 years old, has totally different needs today or even when he came into the league 15 years ago versus a guy that's coming in right now at 22. A 28-year-old might be different, Hunter Dozier, than a kid that's coming in this year at 22. I've got to connect with all of them. I don't need to be a 22-year-old, but I need to understand how to connect with them. It's important. It is for all of us. So let's start with, I don't even know where to start, but we'll go with, let's start with Kaylee and just talk about the challenges for a millennial, or in your case, Gen Z, of getting that respect, earning that and I don't look, we all need to earn respect, but I don't really understand why someone that's younger suddenly has to prove that they belong. What are the challenges for someone that is Gen Z?
Yeah, that's a good question. And so before starting at Risk Genius, I started at Lockton Companies, which is in the brokerage space, and the insurance industry typically is, an old man's club. So coming in, I felt like I had something to prove, and I don't know why that is. Like, I guess it's just because you're surrounded with people that are older than you. You have that mentality. But what I've realized, is if you work hard and you're genuine, you sort of have to. Your credibility follows that. So the harder you work and the more genuine you are, the natural progression of credibility that just builds. So I would say that, it's just challenging because you're surrounded by people and you're talking to people that are older than you and have different experiences than you, but it's all about, like you said, just recognizing those differences and learning to appreciate things about people in other generations, so you can just be better yourself.
I want Mario to jump in, but look at this, we're voting here now, so we already. If you want to pick a team, that's fine, or we could all be on the same team. I thought that was funny, and I love
Thanks,
when the
Alex.
comments come in. Yeah,
That's awesome.
Mari, I'll jump in, and then anybody else that has a take. I know you all have a take on this. Feel free.
Yeah, I think Kaylee, coming from the insurance world, a lot of the similarities. I think for me, it's more about connecting with individuals and connecting with who they are as a person, no matter what generation they fall in. But I think one of the ways that I've been able to build credibility, one has been through the connections that I've had. So really leveraging those other relationships, people who know about me, who know who I am, who, obviously have seen me work. And then also just following with what I say I'm going to do. Early on, I realized, if I'm telling someone I'm going to follow up with you tomorrow, do it. If you give me a task and I tell you that I'm going to do it, do it. So I think more so than on the credibility side, as far as experience, it's a little bit harder to gain quickly, but I think trust and just being yourself and relying on who you are and what your values are, that's been positive for me.
Cody?
Yeah, so I'm blessed to be able to actually be writing a book on this exact topic. And one of the things, my stance on this, and the book's name is We All Have Brains. And so I am very much, if you want to call it loudmouth, about statically placing ourselves within numeric brackets for generations doesn't make a ton of sense when our brains are constantly changing all day. And I very much believe that a lot of the miscommunications that happen between people are not because you're 60 and I'm 20. It's because you're not seeking to understand me and listening to what I am saying. And I am not doing the same for you. And we're just completely miscommunicating because we don't know how to speak and communicate with other human beings. It's not age. That's one piece. And then also the just development of different brains, understanding where younger people are and how to educate that brain that's just blowing up with tons of different connections at this moment and how to handle that.
Emerson, what do you think?
I mean, I agree with everything that's been said already. I guess put my own unique take on it. I think it's you can develop credibility in your own way. I think everyone kind of goes about that differently nowadays, but there's one way that you can really lose credibility fast. And then I think it's just the lack of patience at a young age. Like, being an entrepreneur is really sexy in our age bracket. Everyone kind of wants to work for themselves, but I think being an entrepreneur, if you're working for an employer is hugely important, but it's having that balance of patience as well. And I met with Dayton Moore not too long ago, and I told you I'd reference this, but I asked him about having patience at a young age. He worked his way up the Braves organization and ended up, coming over to Kansas City as general manager. But he said to let the needs of the organization guide your path, and master your responsibilities. And when you can do that, you start to affect other areas of an organization, and then you're tasked with more responsibility. So if you can have that patience with that, drive and follow through, like Marielle mentioned, I think that you start to gain credibility and you don't easily lose it when you're trying to do too much at once.
I love that.
Go on, Cody.
Well, just being able to have a clear process for those things too. Like a lot of the things I see in business I work with is a lack of clarity, especially with the younger groups. Sales is an easy one. Like, here's some cards, here's the key, here's a P card, go out there, get it done. And it's like, what? How is that? Like, how are they supposed to be patient when they don't have a clear path of what they're going to do? Here are the requirements for this job. Here is the pathway. Here's the compensation for the next job above you. Here's how, if you want to own the company, here's the path to get there. How do you build that cookbook? And so some of the patience, I think, could come with some clarity as well.
I think, and I say this every day, people are people. So we're all wired differently. Cody, you've talked about that. We are all wired differently. It's not as simple as, well, if you're Gen Z, you're wired this way. If you're Gen X, you're wired this way. And I think about this all the time when I walk into a baseball clubhouse or locker room, that just because I've got a bunch of young stud athletes in there that are highly accomplished, they're all different. And now they may have different needs, and they may have come up different ways, which can be generational. I mean, look, we hear it in baseball too. Well, back when I played, we would have never taken ourselves out for this. And it's like, now there's something to be said about, look, there's more money to be made right now. There's different risks, on and on and on. So some of that's generational, some of that is just circumstantial based on the times. But if you can connect with someone, you can get anything done. And so what drives me nuts is when you start hearing, say in the baseball world, you have this divide between, and I think it's getting better, but there's actually a great article from Sam Mellinger in the Kansas City Star about this week. You've got the scouts who have always trusted their eyes, and they're kind of the baseball lifers, not always. And you got sort of the new wave of PhDs and research analysts, and so you got the numbers guys saying, "Well, your eyes are deceiving you," and you got the old timers, so to speak, that are saying you never played the game. And it's like, wait a minute, don't you want to work together and find the best possible solution? And so like what you'll hear the good ones say, like Dave Moore, he'll say something along the lines of, "Look, the numbers people help us confirm if what we're seeing is right.
Right.
And the eyes help us say, wait, are the numbers right, or are we going about those processes the right way?" I think, Kaylee, that you've got to find a way to work with everyone, unless you're planning on working with all your best friends.
Yeah, and I mean, it just allows you to be more strategic and more successful if you can partner with someone who has more experience and a different outlook on things. So I love going into meetings with my boss. I would guess he's probably your generation. And he just has a whole different take than I do and brings something new to different to the table than I do. And, I also have to realize that I do too. I'm new, I'm a Gen Z, but I have something to bring to the table that's valuable. So, and I appreciate that he will recognize that. So after a meeting, he'll say, "Hey, I didn't even think of it that way. Thanks for sharing that." So yeah, I totally agree. You have to work together. And, that's when I have the best meetings with people, is when I have someone like Chris, in there with me, providing a different perspective and working together with me on that.
Mario, how about for you? And how do you make that work with different types of groups, different types of ages?
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved the African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I would agree. I think one thing that I've learned is I need to learn about myself, what motivates me, what makes me tick. I remember taking this course through Johnson County Community College titled "Working with You is Killing Me." And I swear I walked into that class thinking, this lady is going to teach me how I'm going to fix all these humans around me in 4 hours. It's going to be great. And very quickly, she made it clear that that's not what this class was about. And I even think she mentioned, haven't you thought that maybe there are some people that are thinking to themselves, working with you is killing them? And of course, in my mind, I'm like, no, ma'am, I'm lovely. So surely that's but I think being able to understand, how what makes me unique, what my strengths are, what my weaknesses are, has helped me also identify those differences between other people. And I think it's just made me a better listener. It's made me a better communicator. And it's made me more empathetic to figure out, okay, this might be working for me, but it might not be working for them. So how can we work together and figure it out to make it work?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, honestly, you mentioned empathy. I think that's the biggest part of it for me, and at least what I do. As a recruiter, I have to seek to understand people, no matter what age they are. And, it might be easier for me to connect with someone younger, but I have to have that empathy to be able to put myself in someone else's shoes, kind of understand, what their passions are, what drives them, how they got to be where they are in their career and everything. And so I think and Cody, I know that you'll expand on this, but having that high EQ nowadays, that emotional intelligence is really what I think our generation is really, bringing to the workplace that I had before.
Oh, I could not agree more. And it's so fun when you start to think about empathy. Like, one of the biggest things as far as what we're talking about right here is transferring that knowledge generation to generation. But without the empathy, like literally in your brain, there are neurons that mirror each other's. And when I seek to understand, and I can think back to, dang, when I was first starting in this business, this is how I felt. This is what was going on. This is what, and asking Emerson, are you feeling this, or this? And once Emerson, his brain lights up and says, yes, I am feeling that. Now we've got that connection with brain to brain. And when I say, can I make a suggestion? Emerson's like, oh, heck yeah. But otherwise, I get these mentors that call me. I make these perfect decisions. I know exactly where they're at, but he won't follow through. She won't follow through. They come back with the same problem. It's like, are you empathizing? And they're like, empathizing? I don't know what that is. It's like, whew.
And sometimes we have to remind those leaders to do that. Like, hey, remember, you were in my shoes 20 years ago, and that's okay. I think my boss appreciates when I bring that perspective for him to kind of remember.
Yeah.
Well,
And to be honest, I think when we look for, cultures that we value or characteristics of a culture that we value, I think one of the common themes I always hear about from people our age is, do you have a leader that empathizes with your employees? Can you at least sit there and put yourselves in their shoes, understand what they're going through? And I think this whole COVID thing has really, brought that to the forefront more than ever, is, really understanding what your employees are going through. And I think COVID's kind of shown culture, shown the true colors of companies and their cultures, how they treat their employees. Did they immediately lay people off? Did they do everything possible to keep their employees, executives taking pay cuts, things like that? But yeah, I think that's definitely a value of the culture that I always see that our generation valuing.
Well, I think we've all learned a lot about ourselves during this pandemic, and even if you're not paying attention, you've learned something. If you're paying attention, there's a lot to learn about yourself, about your company, about the circle of people that you surround yourself with. By the way, I just wanted to do that because it seems like a cool little effect there. And the days in normal times and days, I have someone in the TV truck that is handling the audio and the lighting and the switching of the cameras, and now I'm that guy, so I'm learning all of these things too. But I mean, that definitely gets back to the whole discussion of being able to work with all different types of people. And I love the empathy discussion, guys, because I firmly believe no matter what you do, you're better at what you do when you can walk in someone else's shoes. And so you think about some of these generational differences. I'm of the belief that when someone sends you something, an email or whatever it is, someone on your team, a client or even a friend, that I always respond back as sort of an acknowledgement that I got it. Hey, cool, sounds great, or see it. But what I notice, and I think this is sometimes generational, sometimes there's not a response. And I've had to kind of just have faith in knowing that they got it. It's okay, right? I mean, if it's somebody that I trust, and I've noticed that, like my generation and older, you almost always get a response back, unless they're too busy and they're that type of person. Hey, looking forward to having you on tomorrow, or whatever it is. And a lot of times you just don't hear anything. And understanding that, okay, they got it. And for the most part, that always works out. What do you guys see? It doesn't need to be that. Let's start with Mario this time. In terms of differences, in terms of the way your generation goes about things, in terms of the way that an older generation, mine or a boomer generation, goes about things. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a complaint or bad. What are your observations?
So maybe this is just because it's happening right now, but working in the Medicare space and with seniors and the agents that I work with, I think this business has always been a face-to-face business. And now being able to adapt quickly and accept that change can sometimes be difficult for other generations. But I will say I've been really pleased to see some of the partners that I'm working with that are acknowledging, okay, we have to adapt, we have to change, and they're willing to take my advice or my help to help them adjust. But I think that's one thing that maybe it's because we're being forced into it. I've just always seen that adaptability is different amongst generations from my perspective. Yeah,
I can go next. So I feel like what I see revolves around the accessibility of information. So, we're just so used, our generation is so used to like Googling everything. And, even my parents, my mom, who's in her late 40s, had to open up encyclopedias to find answers. So when I'm trying to find an answer to a question and I don't find it in the first 10 minutes, I'm getting really impatient and I want to go ask my boss what the answer is. And from interacting with him, I've seen him, well, did you think about X, Y, and Z and, 15 other things? And I hadn't even thought about those. So we're quick to want an answer and have impatience around finding the answer. And I think the older generations do a good job and can teach us something about really digging for that answer and doing research. And there's no such thing as a dumb question, but I do. And I'm learning that there is such thing as a question without or lack of preparation and lack of research. So that's something that I'm working on. And I appreciate that I've learned from that generation is, doing your research and thinking about all scenarios before giving up so easily because of accessibility of information.
That's because back when we were kids, we didn't have the Google. By the way, we didn't have internet. I remember when email started becoming a thing, and it was the latter part of college for me, and you could go to the library and get onto an email account and like log into an email account. And I assume it was something like Hotmail, or I always actually get a kick out of anybody that still has a Hotmail address. Sorry for anyone if you're watching that has a Hotmail address still. Good for you. Stick with it, or AOL, something like that. But no, that's interesting. And I just, my only follow up, and then we'll pass it over to Emerson. Same question is, look, I want to be able to learn from a younger generation every chance I get. And I also believe that if I'm willing to learn and ask questions without this assumption, well, just because I've been around longer means I know everything. By the way, anybody that thinks they know anything, no matter what their age, is completely full of it. But if I can learn from you, and I have that trust in you, Kaylee, or Emerson, or Cody, or Mario, and I have that trust in you, guess what? You're going to have that trust in me to ask me my take,
Right.
and we can make each other better. Emerson, I jumped in, but go.
No, it's okay. I guess one of the bigger generational differences that I see is just about like developing, honestly, like a personal brand outside of work. I feel like older generations were always so defined by their careers, and it made them who they are as a person. You know, Joel, I'm sure you grew up around, if they weren't your parents, friends of parents, or your friends' parents that maybe had one job their whole career, and that's, what they did. They're very loyal to that. That's who they are as a person. And so I think that's kind of changed with our generation. People job hop a lot, but it's defining who you are as a personal brand outside of work, and then mirror, or like kind of matching that with your company that you're with at the time. And so I think that's the biggest difference, is like the shift from loyalty to more personal branding, in terms of, you see LinkedIn is becoming a huge thing now. Joel, you've done a great job of building a personal brand outside your work as well, but it ties into it immediately. And so that's just one small thing I've seen.
Cody?
Yeah, one thing kind of tying all the three kind of things together, empathy, learning, all that kind of stuff that I see, is that empathizing about what Kaylee kind of mentioned. If I have a question, I say, okay, Google, and it's answered in seconds. And the ability for me to open up an app, a new technology that I could use for my business within a night, figure it out, and then come the next day and try and teach 70, 60, 50-year-olds how to do that as quickly, it's just not there. So there's empathy that needs to be had there, I believe, for both sides. I need to understand that they have been doing some of these things for years and years, and it's locked into their brain. And it's hard to change, because your brain is biology, and changing biology hurts. It's like cutting yourself. It hurts. It's the same thing. So I've got to understand that as a young person. When I come in with lightning in my veins, speaking at 4 trillion miles an hour, they're probably a little bit frustrated with me.
Slow down.
Exactly. And vice versa. And the other bias that I think both sides worry about is, maybe the older a little bit, is our brain's bias to believe it's going to be harder to change than we think it is. Like, the young person comes in with a new technology, and the older person's like, well, this has worked forever, and changing is going to suck. It's going to take months. But that's just really a very, very false bias in your brain. Your brain is literally made to adapt to change. Biologically, that's its sole focus, is to adapt you to change. And so it's not nearly as hard as we believe. So we've got to stop. We got to undo that bias, I think, especially the older generation sometimes.
By the way, there's never been a better time to work on change than right now, because there's no way that any of us are doing today what we were doing 3 months ago. And, I hear it from my speaking business. I've loved pivoting to doing virtual. Is it the same as being on stage? Maybe not, but why does it have to be the same? So what I hear from a lot of speakers, and then you could fill in the blank for whatever profession, is, well, this isn't the same as. No, it's not the same right now. Can you be as effective? Can I connect with audiences in a different way? Sure, it's not the same. That doesn't mean I can't do my job. A couple of other comments that have come in. Great discussion, guys. Inspired by you all. So thanks to a different Kaylee, different spelling. And I like this one too, Sharon Simeon. So good to hear the great insights and introspections expressed by this group as one from an older generation. Very encouraging, inspiring, and energizing. So I love that comment. And then I want to get your guys' take on this one. Let's see if I can share another screen. There are, of course, a million, Google, go whatever you want, look up studies about generational. I think this is interesting in terms of current workforce. So you can see baby boomers going down. Yeah, there aren't a whole lot of I didn't even know traditionalists was a thing. That Gen Z will start to climb. But you guys, all right, let's go past the traditionalists. but the baby boomers, optimistic, competitive, workaholic, team oriented. Gen X, flexible, informal, skeptical, independent. I guess I'm a little skeptical sometimes. I don't know. Millennials, competitive, civic, and open-minded, achievement-oriented. Employers should get to know them personally, manage by results, be flexible on their schedule, and work assignments, provide immediate feedback. And then Gen Z, global, entrepreneurial, progressive, less focused, offer opportunities to work on multiple projects at the same time, provide work-life balance, allow them to be self-directed and independent. I think before we got on, Cody was talking about, hating labels, and I agree with that, because we've lived our whole lives being putting people in boxes, and I think that's dangerous. But it is there are some interesting things in there. Kaylee, I'll start again with you. That, I think Cody mentioned it, or maybe it was Emerson, one job for your whole life, or maybe two jobs. You punch a clock at this time. This is when you go home. And now we've heard for recent years that, hey, you know what? It's okay to let them come and go as they please if they get their work done. And now in this pandemic, working from home, all that, it's really showing itself.
Yeah, no, totally. And, I'm at a startup. And I came from a more, established business that I've been around for 50 plus years. And I've just seen that I love being in the startup environment, because the decisions I'm being involved in, I'm in the room with our president, our CEO, like our COO, making decisions about the direction of our business and our product at my age. That's something that I crave as a Gen Z, like that, self-independent and, being able to thrive and really contribute. That's something that I really enjoy about being at a startup. But I think back to what Emerson said earlier, you can do that in whatever company you're at, whatever size. And just having that mentality of like, hey, I want to really contribute, and I'm going to be an entrepreneur at this company. So, I think it's interesting, those boxes, because I relate to a lot of them, and I hate labels. But if I'm honest with myself and self-reflecting, there are things that I do identify with. Like I saw the less focused, and let's be real, we're all addicted to our cell phones, and that's just how we were brought up. So I think we do have to be honest with ourselves and say, okay, what are some of the maybe more negative characteristics that we do identify with, if we're honest with ourselves, that are given for our generation, and what can I do to overcome that? So, I really try to leave my phone at my desk when I go into huddle rooms where we're going to have working sessions that are at my startup, where we're going to be really intentional and I need to be focused. I try to, set myself up for success and leave my phone outside the room. So, the generation box is interesting, but I do think there are, we can relate to both the positive and some of the negative if we're honest with ourselves.
Who wants to jump in? Mario, I'll go to Mario. We haven't heard from Mario in a while.
While I was talking, that's one of the negatives, right?
I'm trying not to jump in all the time. It's hard. No, I would say I can definitely relate to the millennial box of the competitiveness. And I mean, my very first job out of college was as an insurance agent. And I went to school for nutrition. So I wanted to be a dentist. Ever since I was like in second grade. And I realized it was because I wanted the flexibility. My dentist never worked on Friday, and I thought that was cool. So I wanted to set my own hours and, own my own business. But one thing that I struggled with while I was in that role was, okay, if I want to look for something else, where do I go? I have a degree in nutrition and I've been in insurance sales. What does that qualify me to do? So I think we also, and maybe I'm speaking out of just my personal experience, but I had a real fear of pigeonholing myself and being stuck in maybe one career, when I'm like, I clearly thought I wanted to do one thing. I landed in something else. I was good at it and I liked it, but I'm not quite satisfied. So what can I go into to continue to develop myself, not just professionally, but also personally? And I've just through my career found that apparently insurance and financial services is kind of where I fit in, and I love it and I thrive there. But I think that does go through our minds. It's like, is this really what I want to do for the rest of my life? I don't know.
That by the way it's not completely generational, but what was it? Studied to be a nutritionist, or wanted to be a dentist, started out in insurance and is now in Medicare. There are very few people in the boomer generation that would have followed that path.
Right.
And that's okay. Like that's just it's not only acceptable. There's nothing wrong with it. So, Cody, I think you had a thought.
Well, yeah, no, this to me kind of, if we take this back to just period education, one of my favorite topics, but young education and the way, when you look at our brain, 70% of learning is experience, 20% is by the book, and 20% is watching someone else, and 10% is books. And if you look at our education, like what we do right now after high school, even during high school, it's the opposite. We do books and watching other people, our teacher, and then we go get this experience in the real world. If we had a system where we had experiences and then supplemented with seeing other people do it, like managers, teachers, leaders, and then the books and supplement with those things, I think that this conversation would, and having a clear direction as a younger person would change a ton for a lot of young people to have that direction when they're younger.
Comment from Will, who says, proud to see two people I went to high school with in here. Proud of you guys,
Yes.
Kaylee and Cody. Hey, I'm proud of Emerson and Mario too. Just want to make sure that we're clear there.
Yeah.
Hashtag Team Mario. Yeah, right. This was a kind of a fun one too. The big difference is technology. I am Gen X. I transitioned from rabbit ears to cable. Now cutting the cable, my kids giggle watching me try to figure out the smart TV. Raise of hands. Who has cut cable?
Oh, yes.
Everybody. Isn't that interesting?
What's cable? No.
By the way, if you're a cable company and you're watching, because this is a whole other discussion. But anybody remember do you guys remember Blockbuster?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I do.
You remember it, but I've been joking about this lately. I found we were doing some spring cleaning. There's plenty of that going on right now. I found our old Blockbuster card, so I saved it as a memento. But there's no such thing that exists. They didn't pivot to streaming. They could have been Netflix, and they're not. Cab companies, will they exist in 20 years? Not the way that they are right now. I don't get a cab on the road. I get an Uber or Lyft. So the world changes. We've got to be able to change. And by the way, the cutting the cable wasn't difficult. We got, I won't say who we have. I don't need to give a free advertisement for whoever, but it's easy. It's fun. It's, and my kids will still laugh at me anyway. So that's okay. I want to go, we've got a little bit of time left. Actually, we got as much time as I want. It's my show. This is the non-baseball broadcast. I don't have a producer in my ear begging me to shut up again. So I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. Out of curiosity, let's go around the horn. We'll start with Emerson, then we'll go to Kaylee, then we'll go to Mario, then we'll go to Cody. Rank in order. Just curious here. Rank in order your social media that you use the most to least of the big ones. We're talking Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. I guess we could add in Twitch, and we can add in. Does Reddit count?
Yes. I don't know if it's really like a social media. It's more.
But I don't use that. I don't use that one. I'll age myself. Go on, Emerson.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I use Instagram just to kind of like scroll through probably more than anything, but I'm more engaged and post on LinkedIn more than anything.
Yeah, I forgot LinkedIn, yeah.
I don't really use Facebook a whole lot. Most of what I see on there is usually older generations. It was, popular for us in high school, but it kind of fizzled out in college. So I use LinkedIn more than anything, which should be a shock to a lot of people because it's not as, popular in our generation, but I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity on the platform right now. Joel, you obviously know that as well. Cody, you do a great job as well. But yeah, I mean, I don't use Facebook. I don't use any of those other socials that you mentioned other than Snapchat. And that's just keeping in touch with friends from all over the country. But yeah, I guess that would be my reasons.
Texting works pretty good for keeping in touch with people too. Anyway, Kaylee, go ahead.
So I'm a big Instagram gal, so I like Instagram a lot. I actually gave up Twitter and Snapchat in a social media cleanse a couple years ago, and I got Snapchat back for 2 weeks recently with quarantine, and I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing on here anymore, so I deleted it again. So just tells you how much things advance in a couple years. But it's funny, I do use Facebook a lot, but it's to counter to the people in my life that are an older generation. So it's so my mom and my aunts and my second cousins in Baltimore can see what I'm doing. And it's very different than what I post on Instagram, so it's funny having empathy for your generations. I know that they love seeing things on Facebook. So I almost post on Facebook out of obligation for the older people in my life so they can kind of stay connected to me because they're not following me on Instagram. And then LinkedIn is one that I want to be better about. So I'm on LinkedIn, I'm trying, but I think that Emerson, you hit the nail on the head. I don't think our generation does a great job with LinkedIn. Like I went to a little get together with some of my college friends and they're like, oh my gosh, you're the queen of LinkedIn. How do you use it? And I'm like, that's hilarious because I don't know what I'm doing. So let's figure it out together. So I think that's one that our generation can definitely improve on, that maybe generations above us are doing a better job leading the way on.
Mario?
For me, I would say LinkedIn and Instagram. I've noticed that Facebook and Instagram tend to have a lot of the same posts and content. And so half the time I'm like, didn't I already see this or didn't I already like this? And so then there's a battle of like, do I like it on both platforms? Does it matter? But I would say definitely LinkedIn. And I would agree with Kaylee and Emerson that for me personally, LinkedIn has always been more of like a professional. So I need to, post professional. I need to have my professional tone on. And I think what I'm seeing now is more of just your personal brand. So like Emerson said, and so being more yourself and engaging with the people that you really want to engage and not just, liking or scrolling. But I've been in, recruiting basically my entire career. So LinkedIn is definitely the one I use the most.
Cody?
Yeah, for sure. LinkedIn's my top one. TikTok is probably my second one.
Oh, I forgot about TikTok.
TikTok is amazing. I don't know what it is, but if you're very calculated what you like, you can really put awesome content in front of your eyes, and it's 1 minute at a time. And so for me, TikTok is literally like the 1 minute YouTube for education. Like it's motivation, help, tips, tricks. So dancing sometimes.
That's what I know it as, is the weird dance videos. And
That's right.
Cody, are you a savage yet?
In what way?
I don't even know what that
Not
means.
like you, Mario. Not like you yet. But and then Instagram and Snapchat would probably be. And then I was kind of hurraying because I do the same thing as Kaylee does with Facebook. I'm only on there ever to help my mom know what I'm doing, or my grandma or someone like that. Just to like, and Instagram makes it easy. If I post something there, I post it to Facebook, and that's about it.
Yeah.
It's interesting that none of you really mentioned Twitter. For me, just because of baseball, and I've always, I try to get all my content out there on all channels. I think it's a way to hit everybody. I agree that the tone is different. And by the way, I think you always need to be authentic. I'm a firm believer in that. And I know that sounds very obvious, but it's amazing how often times people forget to be themselves or try to be something else. I think you still have to be yourself. And so for me, Twitter was always number one because I needed it so much for baseball, and it was the way for me to communicate with fans. It was the way for me to get my information and all of that. So some of that is just muscle memory for me. Like I might wake up and I look at it, which is a bad thing too. Like you shouldn't be grabbing your phone the second you wake up and getting on or looking at social media. There's got to be a better way to start your day. But LinkedIn is kind of like 1A, 1B. LinkedIn is sort of my go-to for work stuff, and then educational, connecting with people on a professional level. Twitter is sort of where I get all my articles and all that. Instagram is more the fun side of things, just sort of the escape. I don't have TikTok. I know that my kids are on it. I got dragged into One Dance and One Dance only. It was like, what the hell? It's a pandemic. I'll do it. But anyone that knows me knows that I don't dance. Snapchat, I'll check out like some of the little like Sports Center or some of those little quick clips on there that you can just kind of get updated, but it's not my go-to. And I don't even know what else. Facebook, definitely, the boomer generation, that's their number one. I think it was for us. And now I'm on it, I'm off it. But I find myself more just like a quick glance and if something catches my eye. But I miss what most people are doing. So I miss the birthdays and all that type of stuff. And it's just, I don't know, it feels like Facebook maybe has passed us by. By the way, and I want to say that a chief of staff, my favorite employee is Emerson Hodes. And I'm doing that knowing that, well, I apologize to a couple of the other guys over there. Lisa's awesome too. But your boss / my neighbor.
Yeah. MySpace. Wow.
Casey wouldn't be able to turn on his computer if he didn't have us help him. So I don't know if his opinion's very valid here.
By the way, and we won't turn this into like a 15-minute bashing Casey, although we could for sure. But Casey is like the oldest millennial that I know, right? He's like a millennial going on
He's an old
baby
soul.
boomer in terms of
Yeah.
Technology.
One of those
Yeah, I said that.
traditionalists. Yeah.
I'm not going to be invited over for a beverage tonight, I
Yeah.
suppose, but that's okay. Yeah, I don't know that I ever had a MySpace, but I think what's interesting about it, and let's wrap it up with this discussion. Mario, we'll start with you. Is the world's constantly changing, and guess what? At some point, the Gen Zs and whatever comes after Gen Z will be filling out the workplace, and you guys will be in my position. You pass on what you know. You hopefully learn as you're going along. What are your hopes, in the next 10, 15 years as you guys move from a spot of sort of earning and finding your way, which, by the way, I think all of you already have, to being that sort of so-called veteran that's been around a long time? Where do you want to see this all go?
That's a great question. And I'm lucky that I have like a niece that's in college right now, and it's cool to see her grow and kind of develop. But I'm a believer that you can learn from anyone, and anyone can essentially be a leader. So I have tried to surround myself with women and really just professionals who I look up to, who are my same age and are going through some of the same things. But one thing that I love being involved in is I'm an advisor for my sorority at KU. And although I'm supposed to be the older advisor, I learn more from those girls than they probably will ever know. And it makes me excited, and it gives me encouragement of the next, generation of leaders to come through. So if I can just be a listener, if I can be a role model or just even a friend to anyone that's older than me or even, younger than me, that's what I hope for. And I think we have a great generation coming through.
Mm-hmm. Cody?
Yeah, for me, it's if we could just, as humans, just take a very large emotional sigh and say, man, I've got a lot of time on earth experience I'd love to put into your brain. You've got a lot of this book experience and new technology and all this stuff. How can I, as an older leader, invest in you, a younger leader who is naturally more empathetic just by the way that they were raised? And how can I empower you and build other leaders, even if it's your receptionist, build them into a leader, and really bridge the gap between where we were and where we're going more effectively together, as opposed to wanting to do those things apart, for sure.
Well said. Emerson, we did get confirmation from Casey. I think the facts comment is about the fact that he is terrible with technology. Yeah. Dude finally got an iPhone this year. Not that you can go Android or whatever too, but anyway, I got to stop doing that. I can't make fun of him anymore. Emerson, your final thoughts.
I would just like to see emotional intelligence continue to take, continue to be more at the forefront of business. I think if COVID's shown us anything, it's that, beforehand, we didn't really value those relationships as much as we should have. And maybe this is the kick in the pants that we need to really treat each other with more respect and to work to, solve issues they're really big within our generations and generations before. And so it's, again, just trying to play to people's strengths, like Cody said, and not really get too bogged down on the negatives, but just be more collaborative and really just embrace new ideas rather than, just immediately shutting them down.
Kayla, you get the final word.
Crazy, right? So I do some consulting on the side for a marketing organization of high schoolers called DECA. And kind of the same thing that Marielle said, like, I am amazed with those kids. And I just hope that they have empathy and grace with themselves, because there's a ton of pressure now on them to figure out what they're going to do with their life when they're 17. Way even more than when we were in high school. So I hope that we see them have empathy and grace with themselves as they grow up, and continue to have tenacious work ethics, and continue to have that drive to succeed. And that we'll all remember what it was like to be in this position, and be able to give that feedback and support to that generation when roles are reversed and we're sitting where you are, Joel.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And I mean, I think back to being the 22-year-old broadcaster, and I was that young kid trying to find my way. And guess what? I'm still trying to find my way. I think that you always have to continue to do that. And I think that all ages, the ones that get it, I think, or at least get some of it, believe that too. You never stop learning. That's such an obvious statement, but one that I think is so often overlooked. Before I say goodbye to you guys, we have this opportunity. Sam, I'm holding this right now in my hand. I haven't been looking at it, Kaylee, so I need to be more disciplined though. Anybody that knows me will tell you that I really struggle with putting the phone down. So that is not a millennial or a Gen Z thing, or it is, and then maybe that's what I have in common with the younger. I can't put the damn phone down, which is a problem. Everybody knows that. It's true during commercial breaks on TV. But I've got my hand set to do a screenshot of the streaming that is live right now. So I want everybody either to smile or wave, because this is the world that we're living in. And we'll take a little screenshot right now. A 3, 2, 1. There we go. So, that'll make its way to social media later. Who knows if I'll do it right? We'll see what happens. But
I believe in you.
Thank you. Guys, this was awesome. And, maybe we'll do something like this again. I think the beauty of this type of platform is we've got the ability to have these kind of discussions, and they don't have to just be on generations. They can be on all types of different topics. And I think that's, certainly one of the nice things that's come of this pandemic is the ability to connect with people from your homes and in ways that we didn't realize before. And every one of you, you're all people, if that makes sense, right? But we still have to figure out ways to be able to connect. Jessica said you were all great to listen to. We appreciate that as well. Guys, thanks so much. I'll go clockwise again here. I don't know how everybody got put in what box they did, but that was the order. So thanks to Emerson Hodes, Kaylee Chapello, Mario Martinez, Cody Isabel. Guys, your perspective was great, very refreshing, and no okay boomers here. So I think, right? Get off my lawn. All right, guys, have a great day. Stay safe. Keep doing what you're doing, making an impact in the community, and I look forward to seeing all you soon.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks. See you later.
Bye, everyone.
All right, that was awesome. So we'll say goodbye to all of them. If you're still here, I'll say goodbye off camera in just a moment. But I do want to thank my friends at KC Cattle Company. Check out that Wagyu beef up in Weston, Missouri, and you can order online. They will deliver to you. It is spectacular. And to my friends at Enterprise Bank and Trust, they've got all the generations covered in terms of their employees there, and they're all awesome. enterprisebank.com. My name is Joel Goldberg. One more episode this week. Tomorrow we'll get to 49 and 50 next week, and then start moving towards the second 50. So big thanks to Emerson, Kaylee, Mariel, and Cody, and to all of you for watching. Please share this with your networks on whatever network you're on. Share it with your friends. We'd love to have all the eyeballs on it on YouTube, on Facebook, and all of those spots. I'm Joel Goldberg. Hope to see you back here tomorrow. Thanks for watching Rounding the Bases Live, presented by Enterprise Bank and Trust.